Hello and welcome to OT, the podcast. We're here to talk about watches, time, and how to spend it. My name is Andy Green.
It's a big one.
It's a massive one.
I should have introduced myself before I went. I'm just too excited, Andy.
Well, Felix, 100 episodes in, you'd think people know who we are.
But new people are tuning in every day to listen, Andy. So, 100 episodes. That's wild. 100.
It's interesting that if we talk about new listeners, which we obviously gain probably every day, we weren't always this good. We weren't always this refined. This is practice. We're finally there.
Some might even argue that we're still not that good or refined, but I think we're certainly better. I mean, we'll talk about it in a minute, but I remember, recording under a doona on the bed with like a little lapel mic.
Yes.
Chatting to certain Swiss CEOs as they were on the treadmill.
Geez, should we go back and listen to the first couple of episodes?
No, we shouldn't. You should though, listeners. You should definitely listen to our own episodes. And
wow.
Think about how much the audio quality has improved.
Yes, we've invested heavily in the audio quality and the editing. But geez, I remember we started this right before the pandemic. Like we were on the cusp of the pandemic.
Yeah, doing little test recordings and stuff.
Recordings, and we thought, okay, we did our pilot episode. We thought we've got something here. Let's do it. And then within a week, I think the world had shut down, and we
even had a studio lined up, and then we didn't ever go to it.
We did. I think in the entire 100 episodes, we've done one episode in real life with a guest, and probably like 6 together.
Yeah,
not many.
Do you know what's interesting, Andy?
What's that?
That today's guest also comes back to that time. They were with us from the very, very, very start.
Pre-launch.
Yeah. So today we are speaking to Maxime Plescia-Büchi, who is the founder of a lot of things, to be honest, particularly the Sangbleu studio, for which you might recognize his collaborations with Hublot. He's a Hublot ambassador or has a relationship with Hublot. He also has a relationship with us that's I think very special.
Yeah, I mean he's been a great friend to both of us. As you said, Maxie's been there sort of since before we started. He was the guy who we sort of said, "Hey, what do you think? We think about doing this," and he fully supported it. As you said, like first sponsor. Swiss Typeface is one of his businesses.
Yeah, he gave us some help. Gave us some graphic design advice, and which is slightly under his pay grade, to be honest. He's worked with Virgil Abloh and OT the podcast.
He's like tattooed Kanye West, and one day he'll tattoo us.
Yeah, and he's a lovely guy. We've met him. I've met him once at an interview at Basel, one of my best ever Basel or favourite Basel interviews. Obviously, we're still chatting into him today, and we'll catch up on Instagram. And in a minute, you'll see we caught up on the phone, and he had quite a good chat about Hublot and other watches and his particular take on them as well. But Andy, what else have we been up to?
Dude, so much. We have been up to, 100 episodes. We've been working on something in the background for months now, like far too long. It's very exciting. We can't give too many details away, but what we can say is that we are doing a limited edition watch.
Yes. I don't know. I mean, this is one of the, I don't know about you, Andy, but I sort of meet up with people and I message people. I just want to forward on those sort of initial renders or, prototypes and go, what do you think? What do you think? I don't know about you, but I've told my mum and my dad and my brother, and that's about it.
I've also told your brother.
Oh, nice. Yeah. He's
Morgie. We know he's listening. Well, we can't say too much because it's still being finalised. And
what can we say, Andy? You're the chief information officer here. What can we let out of the
CIO
pipeline? Yeah.
Okay, so price point is really good. Sort of sub 3,000 Australian dollars. Probably going to be somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000. It's going to be super limited by design and by the brand that we've sort of partnered with. They're not a high volume sort of manufacturer by any means.
Mm-hmm.
Really great brand. The approach, the values just align with us perfectly. Super artisanal.
And I think that sort of came through first. Like it's like we like them as people and a brand as well as the watches. Like, I mean, we both love Rolex, for example, but we're not doing a Rolex.
Well, look, if we were, we wouldn't tell you. But it's a brand that one of us owns. It's pretty. No,
I don't know if you could include that. That really narrows it down.
It narrows it down. One of us. Well, we own a lot of watches between the two of us. It is, but it's very on brand for us. And yeah, actually, from memory, I think they suggested it to us. We wouldn't. I think it wasn't something we were seeking out to, partner with someone to do a watch. We probably would have been happy to never do a limited edition watch. But
Yeah, I don't think it'd been on our
right.
radar really. Like, I mean, a lot of media groups do watches and do collaborations, but I wasn't expecting it when we had that sort of chat.
No. But it's coming soon. I think it's probably going to be around a September announcement, but get excited. The first place that people will see pictures and get updates and get all of the important pre-order info is definitely our Discord channel, so don't forget to join that. That's going to be linked up in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll make a big deal of it there.
It's going to be a massive deal. Yeah, it's going to be a massive deal. It's very exciting for us. In terms of massive deal.
Massive Dells even.
Sick segue here, but I woke up to an article on Facebook and I clicked it, and it was called Deal of the Century, How Michael Dell Turned His Declining PC Business into a $40 billion Windfall. And it's like a 15 to 20 minute read on Forbes. So really quality journalism.
Quick question. Who is Michael Dell?
Well, as his last name indicates, he's the founder of Dell Computers.
Oh, so those boring sort of corporate boxes that just say Dell. Like,
Yeah.
There's Steve Jobs, then there's that other guy.
Yeah. But it's a fascinating story of sort of how, his sort of business was on the decline from a stock market perspective, and sort of how he used a really interesting corporate maneuver to, basically take it private and become a very, very rich man. But he just seems super wholesome. He's one of, I think, the only sort of original sort of tech founders that still privately owns their company or owns the majority stake in it. It's just fascinating, like a fascinating read for anyone who's sort of into, big tech or even business. So, do
you know what I find fascinating about that? How different your Facebook algorithm must be to mine.
Oh, what comes up on yours, Felix?
God, I don't even know these days. Just a lot of kid updates and lockdown updates. Really,
a lot of watches.
Yeah, there is a lot of watch group as well. But
back to watches. We've got another announcement.
Is it watches?
It's not watches. It's more aligned with our 100th episode, Felix. So we thought 100 episodes, it's a big deal. It's a lot of work from you and I. Sort of work listening to all of that for the people,
More than 100 hours of listening.
Oh, my. Thousands of hours work. Like, it's actually ridiculous the amount of work we've put into it. But we thought we need to mark this occasion.
How are we going to do that, Andy?
Well, I think we should do some T-shirts. And sort of, we've done a few before in the past. We've done with First Product. We've done some with Ramaworks.
I'm wearing one now. I'm wearing I don't know. I'm wearing my favorite.
Which one?
Fucking crocodile.
Primo Gelato.
Yeah, white Primo Gelato.
Oh, great designs. We can always do a rerun. Maybe we will. But in the theme of flipping, this T-shirt that we're doing comes in two colors, white and black, which are technically not colors. But we used Paul, aka Modern Thrills, who you might know from Jason Heaton's novel artwork. He did some of the design work in the book. He did the cover work. Nice. Really, really cool guy. He's in our Discord if you ever want to chat to him. Plug that again. Really, really great guy. So he helped with the designs, and we were sort of really grateful for that. But it's very much in line with those tees we've done. I'm talking flipping vibes, but we save the best, the nearest, and the dearest to us for 100 episodes. And what I'm looking at, Felix.
Yep.
Are you ready for this?
I am. I really am ready.
Felix and Andy's Pizzeria.
Boom.
Yeah.
Grab yourself a slice.
Grab yourself a slice of the action.
Have you ever? I know this is a straw man of a question. Have you ever worked in a pizza shop, Andy?
Felix, my first job was a pizza shop. I ended up running my local pizza shop for about 5 years whilst I was in high school and university. It's what paid for my watches. When I retired from the pizza shop, I was gifted a gold pocket watch. So
that's outstanding.
Yeah,
that's great. You must have been really. I also worked in a pizzeria.
Yeah,
pizzeria is a very optimistic wording for the franchise that was Pinky's Pizza Bendigo.
Pinky's, iconic.
Yeah.
Shout out Pinky's.
Yep. That was an important job for me throughout high school. I did not get a pocket watch when I retired from my career as a pizza flipper.
Well, look, I did,
but I've still got muscle memory on how to fold a box. I think that's
you got the muscle memory. Oh, the quick fold. Did you ever flip the pizzas?
My main job, given that it was a fairly industrial process at Pinky's, it was I was a cutter. That was my.
Okay.
You'd be you'd be doing thousands of, I think hundreds of pizzas a night is on a busy night, and it'd just
So
be
you cut the dough.
constant. No, just
We cut
out
the
of
pizzas.
at the end of the oven. I was boxes and cutting. That was my main.
So we had a machine that you could sort of put it through, but anytime like a girl came in, I just did the old fashioned throw the dough up in the air to impress them. Yeah.
Wow. Did that ever?
Did it ever work?
off?
No. And you know what also didn't work? Like I delivered a lot of pizzas. I just do everything, and I never once got invited into a house party as I delivered the pizzas. So
yeah,
myths.
sure.
Don't believe the movies. But back to the t-shirts. So we're doing the t-shirts and we're doing staff caps as well. These have you and I as pizza characters, which is probably the cutest, most wholesome thing I could ever imagine. We're sort of jumping in the air. It's a very cute design. I love it. I think you guys.
Are you a vegan broccoli boy?
Broccoli pizza. Vegan cheese. I think it's super cute. I think it's super wholesome. We're going to sell them for, I think, $55 Aussie, plus a little bit of money shipping. So again, limited run. The way we're going to do it is a pre-order model. So from now, orders are open. Get it in. We'll keep it open for a couple of weeks, probably mid-September, close it, get them made, and then we'll just ship them all out. Same with the caps. They're going to be super cool.
We've missed an opportunity. I've just realised this.
What's that?
We might have to do it. Or we might. I'm not going to commit to it, but I'm just going to say, if you get a hat, and a cap, and a t-shirt, do you get a name tag as well?
We might. Join the team.
Hi, my name's Felix. Your pizza's ready. That was 15-year-old Felix on the phone.
We'll see. And we've been doing some exciting work with our logo and branding. So this actually does incorporate our new and updated branding and a new brand mark as well.
100 episodes. Busy. Yeah. So again, Discord will have all the links to that stuff. We'll also put it in the show notes. Obviously, pre-orders open now. Get on it, I suppose, and we'll let you know when they're shutting up as well on our socials and. Yeah, that sort of stuff.
We'll keep you guys updated. But it's going to be a fun one. We've not done this by ourselves before. So, bear with us as we handle all the logistics. Felix, without further ado, I think it's time to get Maxi on.
Yep. You can help us with some design issues that we've got.
I love it. Let's do it. Felix, today's guest is a hard man to introduce, but if we go by how we know him, well, he's a world-famous tattoo artist, he's a Hublot ambassador, and some might even go as far as saying creative genius. From typefaces to tattoos, sneakers to steel sports watches, his passions are broad and never-ending. Welcome to OT Podcast, Maxime Plescia-Büchi.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
The honor is all ours, Maxime. You're a busy man and we appreciate you taking the time. My first question, do you ever stop?
If I ever stop.
Do you ever stop? Do you ever rest?
Yes, I value. Do you know what? Actually, it's yes, I do. I value my sleep very much. I have never been. I think the very key to, if I have to say one thing that made me able to do all the things and still make me able to do all the things I do, is that I never compromised on sleeping and health. And I would 100% just go to bed, being stressed about a deadline or whatever. Like I would rather have the rest I need than, just do a non-stop, like not go to sleep and 100% like, and so I do to the extent that the kids let us sleep. That's the parameter that I have very little control on. But and I have also discovered that I'm able to survive with a lot less sleep than I used to. But yeah, I do, and I have to say, I have I find that a lot of people think of resting, think of hobbies or holidays, whatever, and what do? They go to the gym or they go run or hike, whatever. I love what I do. I don't really see a difference between work and pleasure, work and hobbies, whatever. I turn my passions into my profession, so there isn't really that, but I do rest. Absolutely, I really, it's the key to all I do.
That's maybe this sort of answers the question I had, and I'll just I will also fully endorse the importance of sleep. I'm with you on that one. You need to get as much of it as you can. So you do a lot of things, like Andy's mentioned. You do a lot of tattoo work. That's sort of where maybe a lot of people will know you from. Also, you've worked with Hublot. You're a creative director, not just of a creative agency. You have a typeface, Swiss Typefaces. You do a lot of different things, and it must take up a lot of your time. How do you keep all those balls juggling at the same time?
That's a good question. The first honest answer is that I'm not alone doing it. And as time goes, I, grow the team and the people around me. And I have to, I have to salute and give, give credit where credit is due. I mean, I have been decent, I guess, at progressively delegating and expanding what I do by working with others. And I would say, so as far as the actual workload is concerned, I don't know, we now, across the different projects, 60 people, are not including, I'd say maybe 60, 70 people, including the tattoo artists. Um, making the studios possible, the agencies, and my main associate as well. And, even, my wife helps a lot. She, we discuss all main um, decisions together. I think it's really, the key was to create a sort of ecosystem, almost a kind of entity that, of minds and bodies sort of pulling the same chord, if you see, so really that from a sort of workload point of view, that's how it works. And from a more, intellectual point of view, creative point of view, it is, I think, and that's pretty important. I mean, um most things that I do, from type design, or I do different things to different levels, but I'd say tattooing, illustration, art, graphic design, etc., etc., or even down to the more abstract things that not might think of as creative, but even when we work on legal aspects or the licensing structure of the typefaces. This is creativity. We work on those in the same with the same approach of problem solving and innovation, that I do if I try to design a watch or a tattoo. So um, I for me, each one of those fields is just one expression of a certain creative vision. If you see what I'm saying, I have a certain vision, a certain impulse, and then it expresses itself. It's expressed in under different forms, but they're just expressions of um, the same vision and the same uh, impulse. There is a term in German that's used for art, often called Gesamtkunstwerk, which is it means a sort of encompassing, sort of multi um, a work of art that has spans across different fields, etc. It's a very interesting term, as only Germans really manage to coin certain terms, and I really like to think my practice and my different activities as that, really.
Yeah, amazing, Maxime, and sort of it's really interesting the path that your career has taken. We both know you on a personal level, and sort of the list of projects and sort of businesses even that you have is quite long and lengthy. The big one that I think encompasses a lot of the work that you've talked about is Sang Blue, which is sort of your creative agency. And I want to hear your kind of description of what Sang Blue is and what it sort of encompasses, because you type it into Google, typefaces come up, magazines come up, Kanye West comes up,
Tattoos.
FKA Twigs, tattoos, the corporate fonts, branding, all of this really interesting and broad stuff. So, what is Sang Bloom? What was your goal for it when you started, and what is it today?
That's a good question, and I think in many ways it helps answering the previous question, um, because all of those things do have a bit of a common origin, and I think you get a bit more, you'll get a bit more understanding of the overlap, or what they have in common, and that sort of impulse that I was talking about, what that could be if you look sort of back in time. And that's where Sembleu comes into play. Sembleu started off as a magazine. Obviously, we could, rewind even further, but I think Sembleu magazine really was constituted as a kind of manifesto for I don't like the term vision. It sounds pompous and to be more than what it is. But a certain yeah, a certain want, a certain I wanted to resolve something. I wanted to create a coherent um, body of work, a coherent object, um, physical in this context, because it was a publication, but it had photography, it had a lot of writing, it had curation, it had all kinds of different aspects, and I was taking all kind of hats, like wearing all kind of hats. I would do the photography, some photography myself, some writing myself, a lot of the curation myself, a lot of the graphic design, and then some people would come and help me and collaborate on this and that. Anyway, so I think that was really one of the most succinct um, shape that Sembleu has had in time, um, is that sort of bottleneck of that point where I managed to aggregate a lot of different things that I had interest for before, previously in my life, from activism and arts, um, graphic design, and media communication. So I sort of aggregate all of that into this Semblé magazine project, and then again after that, it sort of started re-exploding from there, um, because it became this sort of manifesto that that sort of um, uh, that had all kind of offshoots, and this is where it takes us today. We're talking sort of late 2000s for Semblé magazine, up until maybe 2011, I want to say, maybe 12, and then it sort of exploded after that again into the fonts. I mean, those kind of existed before, but like the tattooing, or me as a tattoo artist at that point, I wasn't tattooing yet. All the way to Hublot, all the way to obviously the tattoo studios being an expansion of that. But a lot of you mentioned Kanye West. Like for me, working in relation to music and the role. I mean, I tattooed Kanye, but that was really only almost pretty unimportant comparatively to the experience of working with him, where I did some other work, and got the opportunity to be in touch for about a year, very regularly, doing consulting and things like that with him. And I would really say that the tattooing, obviously the most tangible thing that came out of it, but really as far as it was a certain connection that and a certain opportunity to touch and to be close to music.
Can I
And
jump in
to
there, Maxime? Because that's a really interesting point you've just raised. Is sort of you giving Kanye a tattoo was a really left a memory for you, because it was sort of the tangible piece of a whole bunch of work that you've done together. And typically someone gets a tattoo and it's sort of a memory for them. Is that something that you kind of share? And is that some of the passion that you get out of tattooing, is sort of being able to kind of create these memories together? Is that sort of important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I would memories, in some instances, not mine, someone else's memories. For me, the memory of the process, occasionally, a lot of them, I don't remember that clearly. But I would say what tattoos are and what they have the opportunity, what they can be, but often are, is a signifier. It is just a symbol, a sign of something else. And what it is, well, it's mostly, a language that I provide, and the person who gets the tattoo, tells their story with my language, in some ways, or a box that they get to fill with whatever they want to fill. But obviously, I get to design the box. So I think tattooing really has that, and it's always, almost always, very exceptional for the person who gets it, and often pretty exceptional for the person who gives it. I try to approach tattooing the way, with that sort of excitement that you get buying a new watch, or at least that you get in general, or you should, for sure. If you don't, then you probably shouldn't, but anyway, that's another debate. But at least your first special watches, you get that very, and most people are more likely to accumulate more watches if you get into watches than accumulate a load of tattoos if you get into tattoos. So I think tattoos really have this sort of very exceptional character, and for many reasons, from the pain being even just one, but people will think very carefully and will definitely wonder for a long time whether it's really worth it, whether they want it enough to go through the process. And that sort of guarantees that if they do, that thing they're getting is very, very meaningful. And that's something amazing to be. I mean, it's tiring, exhausting to be, the vehicle, or the, I don't know, alchemist, sort of taking those things that the person brings to you, and brings, and you have to make something out of it. You have to turn this into gold, like, or tattoo. you know. And so it's tiring, but it's also probably one of the most beautiful honor, like, I mean, an amazing honor, and a beautiful thing that you can do for someone.
I'm really interested in sort of exploring that a little bit, because what I find striking about your tattoos, as I've sort of seen them on Instagram and elsewhere, is that you're not known for one particular thing. Like, certainly if you look at the designs that we've sort of seen come through the Hublot watches, there's that strong geometry, but also you do some phenomenal medieval large scale illustrations that look like woodcuts. You do really sort of freeform graffiti script, and
Fonts.
I find it amazing that that you can do all these things to such a high level. Is there a common thread that runs through your design and your aesthetic inspirations when it comes to tattoos specifically?
Yeah, there is. I mean, I would say 5-6 years ago, the answer might have been slightly different, but I would say at this point, I can definitely tell that I have, my, to use a term I hate, but it's a kind of USP. As a tattoo artist, I'm known for, and people come to me for certain things that I do better than most, or at least do in certain styles that others don't, and that's the geometry and the medieval things. So I would definitely say those are my main main styles, main things. And it's very interesting, by the way. There's moments when I get a lot of requests for one type, and others when it goes more the other way, and there's fluctuations like that, and which I really enjoy. That said, I welcome, and actually quite often try to provoke getting unusual requests, and I find, and I think that's the something that I have in that sort of mind state that I have for everything I do. I will find different elements of reward in different types of projects. So within tattooing, but across different practices. And one tattoo might be very, just executing something that someone brings. But if I find, it could be, I don't know. Like recently, I was doing some Cocteau, some reproductions of Jean Cocteau, a surrealist painter and artist, and so that is such an important cultural, beacon for me, and something that is that I like so much. If I do that, I feel just having that moment, having that opportunity to take a small part in sort of using those beautiful drawings, etc., that make beautiful tattoos, and sharing that with the person. There's something that's very meaningful to me, but that is clearly meaningful to the person who's getting it as a tattoo. That is in itself an incredible moment, and I'll be perfectly happy to do that. But then, I might have someone who comes and says, "Hey, do whatever you want." Kind of. It's never every people sometimes say that, but really what they mean is, I'm not sure what I want, but I know what I don't want, and probably the first 10 things you say are the things I don't want. So people should never should never say that anyway. But yeah, like sometimes I get, sort of carte blanche, whatever. Um, and that's great as well. I'll push people to do the weirdest thing I can think of, and obviously usually they will decline, but I'll go from very weird to slightly more moderately weird, and usually that's a go. And I get to really do, a great piece that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do otherwise. So I find a reward in a very broad range of different situations, and that's how I like it, and I like that diversity. But they all have in common the fact that I need to see the spark in the person's eye. I need to see that smile, that moment where I feel like, yes, okay, we have it. If I don't, and occasionally you have people who are either very, uh, shy, or don't really, want to express themselves too much, or very reserved, and I have to, like, push and push until I get this sort of response, because I need it. It's our emotional contract. It's what is the moment they tell me, okay, you good to go, that's how I see it. Maybe it's not that, but I need this moment where I feel like, okay, this person, I'm ready to go. They're happy with this. Anyway, you see what I'm saying?
Mate, it's very cool, and sort of to give the listeners a bit of a visual. I'm sure that we'll be linking up all your many businesses and Instagrams, but what really draws me to your tattooing, and is why I've been trying to chase you around the globe for one for a few years now, is the way you can kind of create these really amazing 2-dimensional tattoos. Because I think that's something that really stands out to me as someone who looks at your work, is the 2-dimensional nature of it, of the majority of it, and it's the line work, which for someone who just mentioned they've tattooed for 7 days straight, being able to keep a steady hand and be able to do the sort of line work that you do is really, I got to say, quite rare. And so, I guess where that leads me is, how does a tattoo artist, with these businesses, end up creating? I'm gonna go out there and say probably the most successful collection that Hublot's seen in the last 3 years, for several years in a row. The Sang Bleu collection. How did that come about?
Okay, so I'll get that, but I actually, as a transition, I'm going to just bounce off of one thing that you
Of
mentioned, the
course.
2-dimensional, 3-dimensional. One thing that, so today I was doing a very pretty large tattoo, and it's a reproduction of Albrecht Dürer. I'll let people Google Albrecht, but the illustration itself is already made. It's perfect. It's like, he's a master. But it happens to be in that style that I work in. But really, where I'm a tattoo artist and not an illustrator, or in this case at least, is that I will take it and I'll recontextualize it, not only the context, like cultural context or the context of the person, but I recontextualize it physically. I use a 2D image and what is essentially, yeah, like I'd say a 2D image, and I put it on a volume, on a 3D object, so the person's body. You have to think tattooing, or I think tattooing in a way that's very similar to tailoring. It is something that will interact and will augment the body shape. It interacts. There's elements where you see more of the body and other parts where you start seeing the image, but the two belong to each other. And in a literal way, when it comes to tattooing, obviously in a less permanent way with clothes, but really the principle of how does it look when you move, how does it look when if you wear a shirt, do you want the color to be completely partly tucked in when you wear a crew neck jumper, or do you want it to sort of come out, like do you want a big color, a small color, etc. All those things are important, how it's sort of, and it's the same with tattooing, like how much does it poke out of the sleeve, and what do you see if it's partly covered? What do you see? Do you see just a random hand of the character, or do you see the face of the character? What do you see from different angles? So it's really a 3D thing, and it's very dissimilar in that way to tailoring, in my opinion, down to the way I work this, what we call the stencils. It's literally like a sheet of paper that we use to transfer the image onto the body. But that, to make the transfer work, I have to cut it, and I have to use a lot of tricks that tailors use in pattern making to be able to stick it on the body and make it work. So anyway, so that leading into the question of watches, I've always liked 2D images. I've always liked graphic images, pictorial art, but I like it in space, whether inside a space or wrapping a space, such as the body. So so for me, and I like the interaction of symbols, signifiers, with what they mean and what they refer to in general, and what they bring in the conversation, bring with them. I like the aspect of ornamentation, of course, and creating if not a silhouette per se, they talk about silhouettes in fashion, but like that's kind of what I'm doing with tattooing. It's a certain type of silhouette as well, or similar to that notion. And then but with watches it's exactly the same. So that's where I'm getting into watches now. I think when we debate the size of a case, how much the thickness of a case, and why is it that thick? Because the movement, is it a modular movement or is it an integrating movement? Oh, it makes the case thicker. Is it good? Is it bad? And then like this is exactly the same realm, or the same principles in the reflection, underlying reflection, and that's the things I always liked. I always liked to draw, but from a young age, I wanted, I got into graffiti. I put my drawings on walls, and sometimes it wouldn't be just a flat wall. Sometimes it would have textures. Sometimes it would be around the angle of a wall. There would be something in front of it, and then you'd have the visual interaction with other elements around, and then you would have the question of visibility, the question of legibility, all the things that apply to tattooing, but also happen to apply to watches. When it comes to actually to how I got in touch, or put in touch with Hublot, to put it very short, in a nutshell, the man who was the director and the sort of creative director, for lack of a better term, is an administrative director, but let's say the creative director of the art school that I attended to, knew Jean-Claude Biver and Philippe Tardivel, who's the head of marketing at Hublot. And so the person, the creative director of the art school, his name was Pierre Keller. He passed away, sadly, and he's someone that had a lot of respect for, very, very colorful, sometimes problematic character, but someone with truly a vision, and anyway, that supported me in weird ways at certain moments and at others not. But anyway, and he called me one day, and I won't be doing an impersonation right here, but I could, for those who know him, he had a very specific way of talking, and he just called me and he was like, "Oh, I've been talking to some people at Hublot. They're interested in meeting up with you. They want to do something with the tattooist. Are you interested?"
Cool.
I said, "Yes, of course." And the following week, I was on holidays in the Swiss Alps when he called me. And the following week, I was in Nyon, meeting up with the team. And the rest is history, pretty much. It went incredibly smoothly. Yeah, in a really, really interesting way.
So what I find most interesting about your collaboration with Hublot is there are sort of other watchers that have drawn on, either working with tattoo artists or using tattoo motifs.
Or engraving.
Yeah. I mean, but typically it is, coming back to that discussion around surfaces and dimensions, the easiest way to do it is print a tattoo design on the dial, print a tattoo design on the strap, and you're done. Was that something that you thought of ever doing with Hublot? Because it turns out what you've created is more sculpture than tattoo, I think.
Yes, so that's a very good question. And I just want to mention, Felix, that that the first, and I think actually only time we met, but the first time we talked as well, was at Art Basel for the release of the second Sembleur 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was at Basel World, I think. But now there is no
yeah,
more
yeah,
Basel
yeah,
World.
sorry. Yeah, Basel World. And you asked me one the best question any journalist I've ever asked me, and became a fan of you from that point onwards. No, but like which is that I was like, thank you for a relevant question. Which you asked me if there was. Oh, let me try to remember.
I can remember. Do you want me to ask you again?
If you were styling, you asked me a question kind of related to that, kind of what you're just asking now, and I'm happy. But I want to say thank you for asking this, and it was perfectly formulated. You remember exactly?
Yeah, it was. Is what you do watch design or watch styling?
Exactly, and that's a perfect nuance. And so let me first answer that again. So obviously I'd say on a scale from styling to designing, on a spectrum from one to the other, we're probably still, I'd say 60%, on the side of styling. Yet I approach it as designing. I wish I could work on the movement, etc. That, that being a big part of what design truly is. But and I don't have that opportunity yet. But nonetheless, I approach it as true watch designing because I approach it with the perspective of problem solving and questioning what a watch is. So really, to answer the first question, and that's what really won me over immediately when I met up with the Hublot people, is that I was like, okay, well, I mean, after 5 minutes discussing, I was like, okay, well, let's just make one thing clear. I am not your typical tattoo artist. I do tattoos, but my tattoos don't look like tattoos. So if you take them out of the context of tattooing, it's not gonna, like, you can't just transpose them like that on a watch. Like, it's not gonna be shouting, "Hey, it's a tattoo watch." If that's what you want, then you have the wrong person. And they immediately said, "Oh, don't worry about that. We want to work with you. We're not bothered about whether it looks like a tattoo watch or whatever, because there had been at least one that I can think of at that point, previous, thing, including tattooing. Actually, technically two that I know, but at least I think the second one no one knows about. But yeah, and from that point onwards, I was like, okay, well then I can really truly give you what I have, the best I can give. And what happened afterwards is that quite quickly I started putting together designs, and kind of using designs as a sort of just visual, background visual on the dial and things like that. Kind of, like whatever Swatch does, etc. What we've mostly seen, and then I put together a couple much weirder, what I truly wanted to do, which was reinterpreting the shape through my process of geometric structures, which is not arbitrary. It's very constructed. It's based on a lot of different things. But in the case of a watch, it was constructed on the general rules of display of time and things like that. So I just did a 2D kind of sketch on Illustrator, using that and kind of saying, hey, this is just a little thing. It's a bit extreme, but I want to show you that we could replace the hands. We could create a sort of different way of reading time and using the display. And there's the sort of three-dimensional aspect, because you have the stack, the hand stacking up into that sort of pyramid, and then we're going to mirror that on the bezel, blah blah blah. And they were like, okay, we want to go for that, let's see if it's feasible. So they had to just check that it was technically feasible, and that the weight of the hands, well, quote unquote hands, the discs that became the hands, weren't too heavy for the stem. I don't know what the term is, but like the little stem that links them to the movement. So they had to check, obviously, if it was feasible, and they found that it was, and yeah, again, the rest is history. But I have to, again, 100%, like, give them credit for just going for it, and going for the craziest, weirdest, most challenging things, like, from the get-go. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and you've put it really nicely there. These are crazy, pretty polarizing designs, even from like a brand like Hublot that is famous for the big bang. This is an even bigger bang in terms of the visual impact that it makes. Now, everything tells me this is the biggest collection that they've released. Certainly in the last decade of the years that it's been around, it's been the biggest as well. Was this what you're expecting when you partnered with Hublot, that you would very quickly be their most successful line of timepieces?
It would be no. The short answer is no. Of course, I think everyone was surprised, in the sense that who could have known? I mean, who could have known if I entered this project being like, what am I even doing here? I mean, this is amazing. Like, I'm really happy, but I think they'll regret it. I was kind of, and because I would only do it, if I were allowed to go all the way. I mean, and that saying, I had been offered a collaboration before, which I had declined, because they weren't putting what I needed behind it, and that is anyway. But I was like, okay, well, I'm going to not. I mean, of course, I'll compromise on what's possible or not, on feasibility per se, but I'm only going to do it if I can be proud and truly think that it's an expression and an extension of me, which is, by the way, what I think is crucial. It's not even a collaboration. Like the term collaboration is so overused and played out, but like, a collaboration is truly where the result is bigger than the parts. The sum of the parts. I don't know exactly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
And where two people come together, two entities come together, and produce something that neither of them could have produced by themselves. And that's the only way our in anything, including the way I tattoo. If I do a tattoo that I'm bored, if I do a tattoo that I would do by myself without the input, if the input doesn't take me somewhere I would go by I wouldn't go by myself, I'm not interested. Otherwise I'll just draw by myself. So I think that why am I saying all of this? Because we couldn't really we couldn't really tell, of course, but I do want to say I had a good feeling because previously in my life, everything that I did without compromising had worked out, and a lot of things that I had compromised on did not. And in this case, with the kind of chemistry that was going on and the kind of support that they were giving and leap of faith they were taking, I had a good feeling. And the first time, and when I saw the prototype, I have to say, I was like, oh, that's something. I'm very, very critical. I mean, it's very difficult for myself when I do something. I don't want to look at it anymore. I'm very self-critical to a point that is sometimes a bit problematic. But I need others like to. But that's one of the few times. It happens occasionally, but when I had the prototype in my hand, I was like, okay, it didn't feel that it was just me who made something. It truly felt like a Hublot Maxime thing. It was a very particular feeling, and it worked.
That's really cool. And I know I want to talk to you about watches more broadly, but I've got one last sort of question around your collaboration with Hublot and working with them. You've touched on it a little bit about where you have to deal with the feasibility and the fact that this is a very precise mechanical object that has limitations. What parts of someone that comes from a very creative process meeting that industrial watchmaking side of things, what challenged you and what have you learned either about design or yourself through that, the last few years of working with Hublot?
Okay, so great question, but I will have to say that the most challenging part is not really the technical side, because I am overall pretty savvy and interested in technical things, etc. And I would love science. I love mechanics. So it's those parts. Those parts I understand very quickly. I can, if someone tells me, if an engineer tells me, hey, uh, hey, we have a little doubt about that. I'm like, oh, okay, yes, of course. Like, and I can think of ways to work around that. And again, problem solving, going around those challenges is, constantly with tattooing. It's something that is very, very based in matter, in reality, with very, very challenging things, like something alive with the body, etc. Like, and then the overall process of making a tattoo is anyway. So you constantly problem solving and working around challenges, and so that's not really the problem. The real challenge for me is which I took with with I was happy to challenge myself to manage to work with the corporate environment, to put it.
Yeah. Okay.
I have to say the real challenge has been much more to accept, and beyond accepting, to embrace and learn to make the most of the necessary complexity and the pace of a corporation, a large corporation with a lot of people, giving input, and a lot of different stakes, a lot of different strategies overlapping on a lot of different levels. And I have to say, it's really that sort of corporate environment, corporate that has been more challenging, but also when they approached me, I think I was at a point in my life where I was happy to try, and I had never worked in a corporate environment, or the few times I had tried, it had not worked really well. It had not really been my my cup of tea. But I think I needed the drive, the right carrot on the right stick to get me through that. See how it works. See also how beautiful the results can be when obviously when you have more people involved in a project like that, from marketing to engineering to to all the complex stakes and strategies, then obviously it's a lot of decision making. It takes more time, but also the result is so much bigger than anything I could do by myself. Of course, we were talking about an LVMH brand. So I think that was truly the challenge. And in the process, I really, kicked myself in the butt a few times, like, telling myself, hey, chill out on that. It's a huge structure with people who have, and you're not alone. I mean, Sembleur is obviously one of so many projects they do. Like, it's not my world. I'm in their world, and to learn those rules and to learn to appreciate and make the most of those rules was the most challenging part. But I think we're really in a good place now.
Yeah, it's been amazing to sit back and watch. Maxime, talking about problems and problem solving, you are on a personal front very big into watches and an enthusiast, collector. How has creating many watches changed how you collect watches on a personal front?
Oh, that's really interesting. Um, it's more the other way around. I think it's more the collecting that has informed what I try to create, and a much deeper understanding of what I think is right in terms of not only designing but developing a watch, with the communication that comes with it, with with a sort of, from the official elements through Hublot, of course, and the campaigns and whatnot, but also very much my own personal social media, how I present the watch, how I contextualize it, how I contextualize myself, how I brand myself, quote unquote. Because to me, I don't really make that difference. Like, I don't consider myself a brand, but also I know that I am a brand, but I don't, it's not really a notion I have. It's perfectly, there's nothing, no difference between what I am and what I convey, or at least, yeah, there's a difference because I don't show everything, but it's not manufactured. It's not something anyway. So what I'm saying is, my collecting has really informed my understanding and interacting with watches, different types of watches over time, but not only even on the purely design and visual aspect, but down to the question of, all the way to the question of markets and resale value, and all those different aspects that, whether we like them or not, are part of collecting, and now more than ever. And we can decide to go against them. We can decide to, or to refuse to play by those rules, but the rules are there, or at least those different state, like, elements of pressure, etc. They exist, they are there. So we have to at least be aware of those, and to understand, yeah, to position ourselves.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think for everyone in the watch space, it's been a really interesting last couple of years, I suppose. With the
Oh
with the
yeah.
pandemic and everything. I just want to know, where are you at now on a personal level with watches?
uh, okay, it's a good question. I personally, I have I feel I have really narrowed down my what I like and really understand. I have really come to a point where I can make the difference, a very clear difference between what I like to see on other people online and what works on myself, first of all. And then I have within the things that I do like and that I do collect, etc. I have um, sort of cut down on, sort of started focusing on the more special pieces. I've realized that within the things that do work on me, that I do appreciate, that I do like to wear, there's, pieces that are more special, that are, and I have come to the point of really understanding what are the different things that I like about a watch. Is it a watch for showing off? Is it a watch to just look at and be like, whoa? Is it like, low key watch, like what kind of people will appreciate in what kind of context, etc. Or what kind of feeling I want on my wrists at a certain moment of the day or during the summer, because it's hot, etc. Like what? So all of those aspects I've definitely learned to break down for myself, and I have sort of focused more in my collection for sure. Um, and on top of progressively also, although they're a small portion of my collecting, or a small factor in um, parameter in the way I collect, but even the aspect of value, I my collection to a certain extent is also my savings. In as soon as possible, probably next year, I'll try to finally buy a house for my family. Um, you know, big. I don't have an unlimited budget to buy watches, so I have also considered values and things like that as part of um as part of my collecting, or it has become an influence in that as well. So I think it's really a question of breaking down all those parameters and then progressively refining the way I collect. Um,
Yeah, very very cool, and it's been I've been curious to watch how your taste has changed, and I remember seeing something recently that surprised me but pleased me, that you purchased a gem set Rolex. Did you ever think that would be a watch that you'd be gunning for, as you said, when you sort of started your watch collecting journey, as they call it?
um, Not really. Probably not, simply because I didn't even know it was a thing. Uh, but just before I get to that, I want to say as well, um, I really my collecting, and I want to introduce that um, because you know I me talking about my personal collection and my personal collecting is not just something I usually do out of uh, respect for Hublot, and I did make sure that they're fine with me mentioning my collections, um, which I'm happy, because I also want to say my appreciation for Hublot and for what I do goes way beyond just the opportunity that they gave me to do that. It was not a default thing like, oh yeah, it's really my appreciation for Hublot is truly on the same level as the other brands that I had been collecting before they approached me, and still collect to this day. So I really want to say, for me, I get Hublot watches as well. As as part of my contract, but also on my own uh, dimes, because to me they do belong in my collection. So that's sort of coming back to the previous question about how
Hmm.
my collection and my designing. Um, it has my collecting has helped me push enforce the vision that I always had of Hublot, Because I remember just a small little side note, but I founded a magazine called November Magazine, which is still going on. I'm not involved in it, but it's still going on. It's a fashion and art magazine, and we did an interview with Jean-Claude Biver a long time ago. And I remember when they first released the Unico Big Bang, uh, and in all black, and it was an amazing watch. It was the first watch. I hadn't bought any watches at that point. I couldn't afford it. I bought a cheaper watch, but I was thinking of that watch as my first, expensive watch, mechanical watch. So anyway, and that's the vision I always had of Hublot. And it bummed me out, the fact that people couldn't see what I saw in Hublot, if you see what I'm saying. And collecting both Hublot and the other brands that we're going to talk about as well really helped me then, understand Hublot better, but also put in the watches that I designed with Hublot all the love and all the appreciation and all this sort of, and use myself as much as I can to help people see what I saw, in the Hublot, and present them, among the other pieces that I collect. So anyway, there's just a little side note, but it will be important in the conversation later, I guess. When I let me say it like this: when I've started collecting, I don't want to. I mean, I could talk about it for a while. It's not relevant here, but my background in watches comes mostly at first from the fact that I'm Swiss and that watches are round. They're a blue collar thing in Switzerland, the way cars, have been a blue collar culture in I don't know, Detroit or in America. If you see what I'm saying, it's something that a lot of people live off, even if a lot of people can't afford the watches they make. It's not from a collector's point of view. It's really from it's a working class culture in Switzerland, and it's a popular culture. It's something that people love watches, even if it's an able watch, even if it's Maurice Lacroix or Baume Mercier, the brands no one collects, Longines or whatever. I guess some people could collect Longines, but like that is watches that people appreciate because they know the history, because they have been working there, because they're true traditional brands, a lot of them, but they're just not up there with the other ones. And anyway, as a Swiss person, it's something that's around you. But, and that's where I'm answering your question, that's my background. But then as a teenager in the early 90s, and I got into American cultures and subcultures. I got into rap, I got into hip hop in general. And all of a sudden, watches were part of status symbols and things like that, and they're sort of much more kind of part of a way to convey certain things about yourself, etc. So but they were essentially jewelry, and they were a statement, and that those two kind of almost polar opposites inform my appreciation for watches, or created my other two poles of my appreciation for watches. And I kind of go back and forth. So anyway, so blinged out watches, or just gold watches, or these kind of like precious metal, in watches, diamonds, etc., is something that I always appreciated as well. And I want to say, even though no one at any of those brands will admit to that, but all the current trend around that gem set watches, etc., comes directly from aftermarket customized watches from hip hop and rappers. And whatever, it is what it is. That's the way the watch industry handles it, but that's where it's from. And for me, it was not a big stretch with my background and my appreciation, going all the way from like the weird, quirky, like Universal Genève or or Longines or like whatever kind of geeky thing. My appreciation ranges from that all the way to gem set, and high jewelry pieces. So it wasn't a huge stretch, besides the fact that I never thought I'd be in a position to afford that one day. Yeah.
That's a great answer. Well, you've probably just answered all of our questions around your watch collection. So I guess I have one more before Felix kind of gets into the recommendation, and that is, you've got the Hublots covered, you've got the Rolex covered. Is there a watch out there that you're lusting after, or that's sort of the next piece that you're working towards? Where's your sort of mind at with what you really want to own next?
That's a good question. To be honest, as far as new acquisitions, potential new acquisitions, I kind of want to give an in-depth answer on this, because there's my interests range from from things that, like, I have a whole sort of system in the way I buy and collect things, with the sort of go-to, also in relation to the prices. There's things that are sort of on the cheaper side that I can buy without really planning too much, etc., and all the way to like the quote unquote grail pieces that I aim to buy once or twice a year, whatever, once a year, or sometimes even less. It depends what we're talking about. But I want to also give an in-depth answer, because it also really, I think, explains my vision of the watch world and what I love about it. I want to also, I have to say, sort of introduce that answer with the fact that I grew up I was born in 78. I was a kid in the 80s and grew up with, all the sort of early days of steel sport watches or professional watches, Rolex, etc., on the back cover of National Geographic and things like that, or the whole, pilot watches, racing watches, etc. And that's the things I used to see. So I think I have to say personally, this is very much my go-to. And I'll talk to that, and sort of as opposed to the more traditional watches, the high complications, etc. That I have an appreciation for, but it's a lot harder for me. It's kind of like getting into jazz all of a sudden, or classical music, when you haven't really been, and it's like such a whole world, and you can appreciate from the outside, or like when you hear it, but not really engage, because it's such a it's hard to know where to start, really. Whereas my background, I've collected watches since I was a kid. I just kept a swatch, a flick flack, or whatever, all those things were just things around that were around us, in quartz watches when I was a kid, little Seikos, little Casios, that you get as a kid, for like $50 or 100 francs, whatever. I think swatches were 40 Swiss francs, if I'm not mistaken, when I was a kid. So that's things that occasionally you get as a kid, or flick flack, etc. And so I've just kept those watches, and my interests range from from that. Those I still get. Occasionally I buy a swatch. Occasionally I buy a G-Shock, or a random quirky thing, or a new independent thing. And so I would maybe starting with that. If I see recently I saw the releases of the Louis Erhardt Alain Silberstein collab that I thought was pretty fresh. I was like, sure, why not? I'll get that. Try to get the the box set, which I didn't manage to, but I was like, sure, well, that's cool. It could be for the kids. It's things I'll just buy like that. If I can, I would definitely jump on, or should have probably jumped on Ming or something like that when it started. Now it's impossible, and I'm not invested enough to start chasing those, but I appreciate, and if I get an opportunity, I definitely get those. So that's that's one side of the spectrum, and then there's the other side, which is the super high end stuff. As you mentioned, gem set pieces or high complication, which I just said is not really something I've really gotten involved in. Yet, although I've owned a couple of perpetual calendars that are and on straps, namely 5930, I think, Patek and there's World Timer and the I don't remember the reference, but a perpetual calendar with retrograde, but in platinum. But that I ended up reselling because it wasn't, I just couldn't connect with that watch, and I bought it at a point where that was all the money I had, and so all my budget, and so I bought something else. But anyway, there's definitely the high complication world is definitely and more classic is definitely somewhere I'm going for sure. So I'll talk about that as well. So I'm gonna I like the pieces that sort of link the two. I'm really super into the Line Sport, I think, range of FP Jaune. I think it's pretty amazing. Both in design, I love FP Jaune, and I love how he really succeeded in creating a very sporty watch. With still the sort of high complication FP Jaune style elements, and I think that's highly successful. The same way I was super excited by the MB&F Legacy Machine Evo, which was also an amazing, an amazing demonstration of giving a very sporty treatment to a super traditional high complication piece, and for the matter, that's one thing that I also really enjoy. I have a long list of Hublot pieces that I'm definitely getting from, because obviously Hublot has completely created their world around the sport and the luxury sport pieces, with all the experimentation on materials, etc., but including extremely high complication, extremely true haute horlogerie pieces that sadly I don't think they're getting enough recognition for. But all their masterpiece series, I own a MP11, which is the 14 I think day reserve in sapphire, that is amazing, absolutely amazing piece. But they also have the LaFerrari and MP, which one is it, with that they just released with the all those colors that look absolutely fantastic. So that definitely is, I really like that. Uhrwerk also had that kind of vibe. For me, an issue with the Uhrwerk and MB&F is the sort of price point. Obviously, Goebel Forcé is like all the way up there, but it will take me a little while to get to that kind of level, mainly because of the costs involved. I mean, if they were like half or a third of the price, I already would own a few. But at the kind of prices they're at, or the entry level, there's other pieces that I prefer to get, and that's where I definitely. I mean, I'm kind of with Rolex. I've sort of covered most of the bases, the basics really, and that's why I'm getting into the gem set pieces now, and with that comes the whole strategy. No, it's not just about having the money for it. It's really about how do you even qualify to get those pieces, which I'm intrigued by that game, and but but also not willing to go all in really at that point either. So I'm still only starting there. But then I think what I'm much more, what I'm sort of certain to be getting is from Hublot. I'm definitely getting the if I can. I know it'll be a difficult shot. Maybe I can get a favor there, but I thought that the Murakami piece was absolutely incredible. I think Hublot really, another thing that Hublot does better than anyone else is really to bring the sort of collabs on the level of luxury watchmaking, and that is what's so special about Hublot, and that no one really has touched in the past or even currently on that level. I think that the Cruz Diaz collaboration is still to this day an amazing piece. Or even when they did the piece with Jay-Z, I think it has to be looked at from a cultural standpoint, and how innovative it was at that time for a brand on the level of Hublot to do a thing like that is something no one else did. And again, I think this really has to be celebrated, especially because all brands are starting to go there now. And I think, there's a point where praises are due there. But there's one piece that I fell really in love with. I don't know if it's still in production. I'll look into that. But which was the Hublot Nicky Jams collab, the Mecha 10 in gold with the gold movement. That was, I think, the Mecha 10 movement is pretty stunning, and in gold it was incredible. That was a piece I would definitely own. And I really like the Hublot integral pieces. By the way, I think that the all black one is fantastic. I'm definitely going to be getting this. On a higher level, their new micro rotor tourbillon in sapphires is pretty incredible. Obviously, I won't be able to get absolutely everything, but get a few of those. And I can't wait to see what Samuel Ross, who's a friend of mine as well, will come up with, who's doing a collab with Hublot. So that's for me, Hublot is obviously very exciting always. As far as other pieces, there's a few things that I'm still trying to get before I sort of move to the next phase. But as far as steel or sport, luxury sport watches, I think that one of the last boxes I would love to tick is the a gem set 5711. Most of them are not really in production, and the ones that are not really, then you have to be someone special to get those, as we know. So I don't know how plausible that is, but the ruby set one, I don't think it's in production anymore. It's absolutely incredible. That would be kind of a grail thing before I move on to the high complication and the more traditional pieces. But I'd love to get the gold 5990. I have a steel 5990, and I was always absolutely loved this iteration of the Nautilus. That is a piece I'm definitely gonna get at some point. I have a 5980 in gold as well. That is for now one of the two sort of peaks of my sort of biggest pieces of my collection, with that gem set Submariner that you mentioned, and what else? I mean, I definitely would love to get into more vintage things. Sadly, I'm a bit late in that. I love all the double signed, you know. Oh no, they were. Yeah, I don't know. If, no, they're not. I don't know if these ones are considered double signed, but you know, all the like Comex and other special edition Rolexes or even Tudor. That's something, you know, I sort of missed the opportunity to get some of those at normal prices, and I feel if you really engage with a vintage Rolex, for example, World, then it's still fun and but I don't know if I'm really willing to go all the way. That might be an opportunity. If an opportunity arises, I might one day, but that would be something. I'm absolutely in love with the perpetual the world world timer, the Patek 5131 in platinum on bracelet. That's for me another sort of I love those bracelet pieces. I think they really have this sort of sporty look with all everything that's amazing about, you know, the enamel dials and the high complication in general. But yeah, then you know, I think it's likely that I'll be getting relatively soon something along the lines of the 5070 that I absolutely love, or the 5970 or the 5270. You know, I'll still have, the main thing is I'll have to try it on and to sort of see how it works on me, because I also have big wrists and a lot of the pieces on strap don't really look that great on me, and it's quite frustrating because it looks great on everyone else or in photos but not really in real life. So that's something I need to test a little bit. And yeah, like what else? I'm definitely there's a few like sort of, you know, sort of lower profile pieces that I thought were really noteworthy recently. I really like the Oris, what was it called? That sort of pilot, you know, integrated bracelet piece. I thought was one of the best integrated bracelet pieces that came out in the past couple of years. As you know, every brand now has one, I guess, and but there's good and bad. You know, the Chopard one I really dislike. The Tissot one, sadly, it's a quartz movement that just came out. I think it's pretty pleasant to look at. But otherwise, I thought the Oris one was really interesting. And yeah, I mean, I'm really into Grand Seiko. I've been intrigued recently by the, you know, I feel that they're facing choices in terms of where to go from here. They have made improvements to their spring drive design overall. That more recent birch piece was on a slightly updated bracelet and case design. I mean, they do a lot of micro adjustments that I think are very good. They have to be done, but also they can get a bit confusing because you never know which one you're getting, and you know, it's hard to really understand which one is an upgrade, which one is but I own a couple that I really like, and I'm definitely going to keep an eye on Grand Seiko. I feel that they are navigating, you know, I feel they're really taking steps towards positioning themselves more firmly, and I'm intrigued to see how, in which way, because they don't really deal with high complication pieces, but they do deal with very sort of luxury, very traditional, very interesting materials, interesting techniques, you know, or the work on the dials, or the work on the cases with the, you know, I don't know what you call it, the hammering or whatever, you know, the different textures. It's pretty stunning, I have to say. And I find them all extremely ergonomic overall, and pleasant to wear, which is sometimes a problem with certain brands. So definitely following Grand Seiko, definitely, yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it for where my interests lie at this point. Let me see if there's any. I took a couple of notes. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. So there's other like little. I have a bit of this sort of multiple personality thing when split personality when it comes to my tastes. Cartier is definitely a brand I'm personally extremely interested in what is happening with brands coming from jewelry and getting involved into watches. I have to say that some of the most striking pieces I've seen in the past 2 to 3, maybe 3 or 4 years even, were from, Fabergé or from Graf or from, and I'm gonna, I know how controversial that is, but I'm going to say even Jacobs and Co. Have done, pieces that I thought were interesting because I feel they're less, slowed down, or kind of they're less loyal to the whole, watch, the codes of the watch industry, etc. And here and there, I thought Montblanc had interesting moments. They don't seem to be really going anywhere at this point, but they acquire Minerva. I mean, it was a smart move, and I think they had an interesting. There's an interesting potential anyway, but I think that all the sort of high jewelry, the watchmaking taken from the high jewelry point of view, or the jewelry in general, which is, it seems that Cartier has that sort of, well, actually Cartier and Bulgari maybe are the two brands that truly have this position to be both, and a lot of other brands that try are not really succeeding. I mean, but they definitely manage that. But by the way, yeah, Bulgari is another brand that I think is absolutely killing it with the Octofinissimo. It'd be interesting to see if they manage to find at least one other model to really sort of. They have other models, but maybe the Octofinissimo can be their Royal Oak or their Big Bang, but it feels that it'd be good to see if they manage to be as successful with another model. But they absolutely killing it, and I have to say the collaboration they are doing with what's it called, the Japanese architect, or is it an architect? The one I'm talking about. So I think Tadao Ando is the whole that whole series is absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, like I think that there's been a very interesting push in terms of design from the angle of jewelry making, and and I think today with the hype around gem set pieces, you see brands that are doing really good with gem setting in general, and others that might be lagging. Like personally, as much as I love the Patek gem set pieces, for me they're a bit lazy with their gem setting often, whereas Rolex is doing an amazing job, and I think Hublot is killing it. I think they're gem setting the rainbow for the interpretation that Hublot did of Rainbow Watch is completely insane, and they just took it to a level that no one else really managed, and I think it's absolutely an incredible piece that I would own if I could. Oh, by the way, the high jewelry version of the Semble 1, Semble 1, that the high jewelry version that Hublot did of the first Semble design, which I'm very proud to say is owned by Young Thug, owns one, is for me like the best version of the Saint Bleu one. I mean, it's incredible. It's on baguette diamonds, and it's absolutely incredible. So I think now it's quite interesting, because I think on that sort of level, you know, the cards are dealt a bit differently, and the people who have had more experience in gem setting and have pushed it farther have a bit of an advantage there, that I find quite exciting to see who are the players on that sort of realm. But yeah, so I thought that Hublot Rainbow Big Bang, and even actually the Spirit of Big Bang, the tonneau version, is quite incredible. But yeah, that's my general, perception of the field, and my interests at the moment. Let me see if I seem to have forgotten anything. But no, I think I sort of mentioned everything there.
As you know, Maxime, we end an episode with a recommendation for something that ideally is not watch related.
Mm-hmm.
And with you, I think there's so much scope. I mean, like you're now living in LA. You've obviously got graphic design, tattoo interests, all sorts of interesting things that you're involved in. I'd love to see what you're enjoying recreationally at the moment, if you even do that with all your spare time.
As I was saying earlier in the conversation, I haven't really. I mean, I'm lucky to do what I do, and that's both my recreation and I don't really see a difference there. I mean, we just had a very nice Father's Day little get together with friends, and that was very exceptional and pretty amazing. But right now, no, I mean, not really, nothing very particular. Just being able to have some time with family and friends. That's really my focus now. I would say when I have extra time, I try to also work on my own art. As in art practice, like visual arts, mm-hmm. not paintings and sculptures, etc. But no, I mean, it's just a moment like that. Not much else really.
There we have it. Maxime, thank you so much for joining Felix and I.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Yeah, it's been great.
An absolute pleasure.
Can't wait to catch up in person next time, hopefully.
We can get some matching ink. I'm in, Felix. Are you in?
No, clean skin. All the way.
Oh, I see you at Baselworld. But anyway, no, I truly hope to see you soon. The launch of my new Hublot watch will be next year, but I don't know. Maybe if you come into LA, if things reopen, let me know, of course. And otherwise, I'll see you at some watch events.
Sounds like a deal. All right, mate.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
There you go, Andy Green. Always a pleasure to chat to Maxime. And what a guy. What a career. What an interesting, I think, perspective on design and balance, as well. He's just, I think, I really respect his perspective on things. Do you know who else's perspective I respect, Andy Graham?
Whose is that?
Yours.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So, which is why I have, let you run amok with the t-shirt design, to be honest, which, again, pre-order our t-shirts. Do that link in show notes on our website. Join our Discord. Follow us on Instagram. How do they do that, Andy Green?
At ot.podcast. If you want to email us, otthepodcast@gmail.com. Show notes will have all the links you need for those t-shirts. And Discord is the place to be. And of course, don't forget, if you like this show, subscribe, tell your friends, your neighbours, your sisters, their brothers. And of course, 5-star reviews are always welcome, if not encouraged.
One more thing, Andy. One more thing. I think if someone's been listening this long, I think it's only fair that we tell them that the watch brand that we're collaborating with is